Hey everyone! Before we get started, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far this community reaches. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe. Alright, let's jump into today's video. The case of Bianca Roberson. Bianca Roberson, born on October 17, 1998. Bianca grew up to be a remarkable individual. She excelled at Bayard Rustin High School, earning straight A's and graduating with honors. Her impressive academic record earned her a 4-year merit scholarship to Jacksonville University in Florida, where she planned to major in criminal justice and pursue her dream of becoming an FBI forensic agent. Bianca was a multi-talented young woman who had been involved in various activities throughout her life. She was a Girl Scout, a cheerleader, and a basketball player. She also had a passion for music, taking lessons in flute, violin, clarinet, and guitar. Additionally, she was an artist. Bianca lived with her mother and maternal grandmother, Josephine Perry, and was excited to experience the independence and challenges of dorm life. However, her plans were tragically cut short. On June 28, 2017, Bianca, her mother, and grandmother went shopping at Walmart to prepare for her upcoming move to Florida. Bianca Roberson was tragically killed in a car accident on a road she knew well. The incident occurred just 10 minutes after she left a Walmart parking lot. Witnesses quickly called 911 and first responders rushed to the scene. Unfortunately, paramedics were unable to save Bianca and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Initial observations suggested that Bianca's severe head injuries were caused by her car veering off the road. However, as police interviewed eyewitnesses, a crucial detail emerged. A witness reported that Bianca's car had collided with a red pickup truck, which had fled the scene without stopping. As she drove home to meet her granddaughter, Bianca's grandmother was worried about the traffic and wondered if it might be related to Bianca. However, she had no idea that the cause of the traffic jam was actually a car crash involving Bianca. When she arrived home, she was met with devastating news. 2 police officers were waiting to inform her that Bianca had been killed in the accident. For Michelle, Bianca's mother, the news was almost too much to bear. Losing a child is every parent's worst nightmare. Michelle, a nurse from Delaware County, was still grieving the loss of her 22-year-old son, James Rowley, who had passed away from a heart condition in February 2013. She had hoped that time would ease her pain, but instead, it had only intensified with the loss of her daughter. Michelle Robertson is struggling to cope with the loss of her second child. "I'm just existing," she said, feeling lost and without purpose. Her children were her reason for getting up in the morning, and now she feels like a mom without kids. After her divorce from Rodney Robertson in February 2006, they managed to put aside their differences and work together as amicable co-parents thanks to their daughter Bianca. Michelle acknowledged that their divorce was not easy, but Bianca's presence helped to calm the tension. "Bianca didn't like it when I spoke harshly to her mother and she would correct me," he said. Bianca's love for her family, especially her father, brought them closer together. Rodney admitted that Bianca was his favorite and her devotion to family was inspiring. Bianca's father proudly said that his daughter was one step closer to achieving her dream of becoming an FBI forensic specialist. Bianca was excited to be on her own, but her future career was her main focus. Her hard work had paid off as she had received a 4-year merit scholarship to Jacksonville University, one of the 3 schools that had accepted her out of the 4 she had applied to. Bianca's father said she had also been accepted to Coastal Carolina and the University of Georgia. Investigators were seeking CCTV footage to confirm the initial belief that Bianca's car veered off the road after colliding with a red pickup truck. If this were the case, it would imply that Bianca's death was no accident, but rather a deliberate act that required the police to identify a perpetrator. However, the truth revealed during the investigation proved even more stunning. While awaiting the CCTV footage, a significant development in the case occurred. It was initially assumed that Bianca's death resulted from her car crashing and hitting her head. Yet, during the autopsy, forensic experts made a startling discovery. There was a bullet in Bianca's head. This revelation drastically altered the course of the investigation. What initially seemed like an accident and later a collision with a red pickup truck was revealed to be a death caused by a gunshot wound to the head. The autopsy report's findings prompted detectives to meet with Bianca's family, bringing devastating news that her death was no accident. This revelation sent shockwaves, especially for her mother, Michelle, who couldn't fathom why anyone would harm her daughter. Bianca had a close-knit relationship with those around her, and her family couldn't identify anyone who might have wished her harm. Desperate for answers, the Robertson family relied on investigators to identify the person responsible for Bianca's tragic death. Upon reviewing the security footage from the Walmart her family visited on the day of her death, detectives found no suspicious activity. The detectives closely examined the family's actions from the moment they left their cars to the time they departed the parking lot. They dismissed the possibility that someone from Walmart could have followed Bianca and shot her, as she had not argued with anyone during their visit. The family had simply shopped, loaded their purchases into Bianca's car, and left. The investigation suggested that the motive for Bianca's death might be linked to an incident that occurred while she was driving home on the highway. Bianca's mother recalled, "We packed all the bags into Bianca's car," referring to the February 2009 Chevy Malibu they had purchased for her 16th birthday from CarMax. Michelle recalled that her mother had chosen the car Bianca was driving when she first got her permit. According to Michelle, Bianca's mother said that Bianca had gotten everything she wanted, but Michelle didn't think of her as spoiled. Instead, she believed Bianca was simply loved and also willing to work for the things she desired. In fact, Bianca started her first job at McDonald's when she was 15 and soon switched to a dietary aide position at the White Horse Village retirement community in Delaware County. Michelle remembered that she had received a large number of letters and cards from the residents at White Horse Village who adored Bianca. After the police obtained traffic footage from CCTV cameras, Michelle pointed out that there were no cameras at the exact location where Bianca veered off the road. However, there was a camera about a mile away. To help illustrate the location, Michelle suggested looking at Google Maps. According to the map, Bianca lost control of her car where two lanes merged into one. When investigators reviewed the recording, they found evidence that supported the account of Bianca's encounter with the driver of the red pickup truck. The footage showed they cars traveling side by side, approaching a point where they lanes merged into one. It's possible that the conflict began when one driver failed to yield to the other. Given the tragic outcome, investigators inferred that the driver of the red pickup truck might have been the one who fired the shot. However, the poor quality of the footage made it impossible to read the pickup truck's license plates or see the driver's face. Nevertheless, from that point on, the driver of the pickup truck became the primary suspect in Bianca Roberson's death. Detectives were tasked with identifying the man, but they only had a blurry image to work with. After inquiring with Bianca's family members, it became clear that none of them knew anyone who owned a red pickup truck. The police then re-interviewed the witnesses who were present at the scene and those who had called 911, but unfortunately, none of them had caught a glimpse of the vehicle's license plate. The Bianca Roberson family has received an outpouring of support from friends, strangers, and people of all ages since Bianca's passing. A vigil was held just 2 days after her death, and many have reached out to share their stories and condolences. Bianca's family describes her as a selfless and compassionate person who always put the needs of others before her own. According to her mother, Michelle, Bianca would often take in children who were in need, even if it meant sneaking them into their home without permission. When confronted about her actions, Bianca would simply say that she wanted to help others in the same way she would want someone to help her if she were in a similar situation. This kind of empathy and kindness was evident in many aspects of Bianca's life, including the time she witnessed a car accident and immediately asked her mother if they could stop to help. A kind-hearted woman's first instinct was to invite those eating alone to join her family for dinner. In the aftermath of Bianca's car accident, Investigators analyzed footage from distant cameras to determine the direction of the red pickup truck involved in the incident. To gather more details about the truck, including its brand, model, and license plate, they required higher quality footage. The police sought the public's assistance through the media, asking anyone with information about the truck to come forward. Following the accident, the pickup truck turned towards Pike to find evidence. Detectives visited nearby houses and shops, searching for cameras that might have captured the truck. After an extensive search, they found a camera with good quality footage taken around 5 minutes after witnesses called 911 to report Bianca's car accident. Upon analyzing this footage, detectives saw the red pickup truck driving by shortly after the incident. The investigation continued, but the license plate of the suspect's car remained unknown, and it was unclear if the car in the footage was the same one or just a similar vehicle. However, 2 days after the incident, a new lead emerged when a woman contacted the police, claiming to have seen the car they were searching for. She also reported seeing the driver's face. She described the car as a red pickup truck that overtook her, stopped at the Pike intersection, and then turned left. This information was crucial in narrowing down the search area and also revealed that the pickup truck in the footage was not the actual suspect's vehicle, but rather a similar-looking truck. Her description helped a forensic artist create a sketch of the suspect, who was identified as a white male, 25 to 35 years old, with brown hair and a stubble beard. The police released the suspect sketch, hoping someone would recognize the person and come forward. They showed the sketch to Bianca's family, but no one recognized the individual. As the investigation continued, detectives began to consider the possibility that Bianca's death was a hate crime. To gather more evidence, the police canvassed the area where the red pickup truck was last seen. Visiting homes and businesses near the intersection where it turned left, they were searching for a high-quality surveillance recording that could provide answers to their questions. Their efforts paid off when a homeowner, who lived less than half a mile from the intersection, provided the police with a recording from their driveway surveillance camera. By estimating the time it would take to drive from the crime scene to the homeowner's location, the police quickly found the relevant footage. Although the new footage was of better quality than the previous one, its angle made it impossible for the police to identify the car or its driver. The police worked hard to find another recording from a closer camera, and they got lucky. Although the license plate was not visible, they were able to identify some unique features of the car. These features included a sticker on the right side window, a vertical dent on the passenger door, and damage to the hood. With these details, the police had a much better chance of finding the car. The police sought the public's help in finding the truck and its driver by offering a $5,000 reward for any information that could aid in the investigation. They were confident that someone would recognize the distinctive vehicle. 3 days after Bianca Roberson's death, a lawyer contacted the police station on behalf of a client who wanted to turn himself in, stating that his client was connected to the incident that resulted in Bianca's death. The incident occurred on a recent Wednesday at approximately 5:30 p.m. Bianca Roberson, an 18-year-old who had just graduated from Westchester Ruston High School, was driving on Route 100, a 2-lane highway, on her way to Jacksonville University. Her life was full of promise with a loving family and a bright future ahead. As she approached the merge with Route 202, the road narrowed from 2 lanes to 1. A common merge on a southeastern Pennsylvania highway turned deadly last Wednesday when a dispute over positioning escalated into violence. Bianca Roberson was merging from 2 lanes to 1 when a man in a red pickup truck, also merging, became agitated and shot her in the head. The suspect, 28-year-old David Desper of Pennsylvania, surrendered to police with his lawyer. Although he refused to testify, he consented to a search of his home and revealed the location of his pickup truck. David was subsequently arrested and charged with Bianca Roberson's murder. The police tracked down the suspect's vehicle, a pickup truck, at a location David had previously mentioned. Unique features on the truck, such as stickers on the windows and damage to the body, made it unmistakably clear that it was the same truck involved in the crime. The investigators searched Davidge's residence and found the firearm that was used to shoot and kill Bianca Roberson. Despite this major breakthrough in the case, the authorities remained baffled as to the killer's motivation. Over 800 loved ones and members of the community attended a heart-wrenching farewell ceremony at the St. Paul's Baptist Church in the suburban Westchester borough, which lies approximately 25 miles. During the funeral service, many people paid tribute to she, including her brothers, officials from her high school, the chief admissions officer from the university she was set to attend, and friends. In his eulogy, Pastor Wayne Croft Sr. drew a comparison between the shooter and two other infamous cases: George Zimmerman, who shot and killed Trayvon Martin, a black teenager, in Florida in February 2012 and was acquitted of murder in February 2013, and Michael Dunn, who shot and killed Jordan Davis, another black teenager, in Florida in 2012 after a dispute over music. Dunn was convicted and sentenced to life in prison plus 90 years. The pastor expressed the sentiment of the black community, stating that regardless of whether Bianca's murder was a result of road rage or racism, the fact remains that a brilliant young black woman's life was lost. During the trial in September 2018, David Desper was asked to explain his motive for committing the crime. Instead of providing an answer, he requested forgiveness from Bianca's family. For Bianca's parents, the thought of facing their daughter's alleged killer was daunting. To show their support and unity, Rodney had arranged for family members and friends to wear T-shirts with Bianca's face on the front as they gathered at the Chester County Government Services Center. The family of Bianca Roberson wore bracelets with a poignant message: Bianca Roberson, a rose in God's garden. They also held a banner that read "Justice for Bianca Nicole Roberson," a reminder of the tragic event that took her life on June 28, 2017. Rodney, Bianca's father, expressed his uncertainty about how he would react when he saw the man responsible for his daughter's murder. "I don't know what I'll do when I see him," he said. "The man who held the gun that took my daughter's life, he just took her dreams away. He had no right to do that." Michelle, Bianca's mother, struggled to come to terms with the loss of her child. "I want to hold her, comfort her, and bring her back," she said through tears. The prosecutor argued that the traffic conflict occurred because Bianca failed to yield when the lanes merged into one. In response, David Desper rolled down the passenger side window and fired a shot. Realizing the severity of his actions, David Desper fled the scene, leaving his pickup truck with a friend in Pennsylvania, and attempted to escape to Delaware. However, after his sketch and the distinctive features of his pickup truck were publicized in the news, David Desper decided to hire a lawyer and surrender. The police investigated his social media accounts and interviewed his friends, but found no evidence to suggest that the crime was motivated by bias. As a result, David Desper was not charged with a hate crime. District Attorney Hogan stated that there was no indication that the crime was racially motivated or a hate crime. However, many people disagreed with this assessment. Before the sentencing, the defense portrayed David Desper as harmless and immature for his age, describing him as a big kid who enjoyed playing with cars in his free time. They argued that David Desper had essentially handed the case to the government by turning himself in. The defense claimed that David Desper was driving home when another car startled him, causing him to fire the gun. They maintained that David Desper was not a menacing individual. Prosecutor Chris Miller countered that a 28-year-old man driving with a loaded firearm is not a big kid. He emphasized that David Desper's actions were those of a responsible adult. Ironically, David Desper's own mother had shared a Facebook post about the police searching for the person who murdered Bianca Roberson, unaware that the suspect was her own son. Wendy Depard expressed her love for Bianca's family and apologized for her son's actions. "I'm so sorry for what my son did," she said as her son wept. Rodney Robertson struggled to speak through tears as he addressed his daughter's killer. "I have simple questions for the defendant," he said. "Why did you shoot my daughter? Was it because of her youth, her race, her gender, or just because you wanted to go first on the road? Was it simply because you were having a bad day?" Rodney continued, All my dreams for Bianca were coming true until the day the defendant took her life. Now, all I have left of Bianca are my memories." David Desper pleaded guilty to third-degree murder. The court sentenced him to 40 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Judge Anne-Marie Weecraft became emotional as she announced the sentence, telling Desper, "I don't believe you were afraid. I believe it was anger." County Judge Anne-Marie Weecraft imposed the maximum sentence of 20 to 40 years for that grade of homicide. David Desper attempted to appeal the sentence, but his appeal was denied. The case of Catalina Gutierrez. Catalina Gutierrez, a strong and ambitious woman living in the heart of Argentina, suddenly vanished one unknown evening in July 2024, leaving her family, friends, and over 100,000 fans terrified. As the police gradually arrived to start their investigation, Catalina's parents were overwhelmed by the rumors swirling around town. Following leads about a suspicious vehicle, they stumbled upon something truly frightening. But this was only the beginning of a series of shocking revelations in this tragic story. Right now, the focus is on Catalina Gutierrez's case. Welcome to Argentina, a stunning country known as the 8th largest in the world. Nestled between Chile's towering Andes Mountains and the vast Atlantic Ocean, Argentina boasts diverse and vibrant landscapes, teeming expansion of large-scale farming and livestock grazing aimed at feeding the global market and generating profit. Unfortunately, it's not just the environment that's being devoured. Argentina's social fabric is also at risk. The country struggles with crime rates far above the global average, ranking 9th in the world for murders. This alarming reality is tied to deep-rooted corruption within Argentina's economy. So, it's no surprise that we want to delve into this nation's story now. Let's travel back to 2023, to the bustling city of Córdoba, located about 500 miles northwest of Buenos Aires, Argentina's vibrant capital. Córdoba is often seen as one of the wealthiest cities in the country, serving as a key hub for business, government, and education. Yet, like much of Argentina, Córdoba faces high crime rates, ranging from petty offenses like pickpocketing and scams to serious crimes such as murder and drug trafficking. This keeps the police very busy, of course. On the warm evening of July 18, 2023, a small family from the Anasacata area felt a heavy sense of unease. It was because their daughter, Catalina Gutierrez, wasn't there. Even when the moon went down and the sun came up, there was still no sign of her. The Gutierrez family tried to hold on to hope, but as the hours went by, their worry turned into fear. So they went to the local police station together and made the right choice by reporting her missing. Within Catalina's close family and friends, there was her mother, Eleonora her father, Marcela her sister, Lucia her boyfriend, Lazaro Oliveira and her friend, Nestor Soto. The group was sad. Someone in the group said that Catalina had not been seen since around 9 p.m. the night before. It was said that she was in a good mood when she left her family to go bowling with friends at the Patio Olmos shopping center, a famous spot in the middle of the city. She left her boyfriend, Lazaro, a happy voice message before she left, telling him that she was on her way and that she was looking forward to seeing him soon. Catalina would never get to the shopping center, so that promise was never kept. She sent him a voice message, and it would be the last message anyone would read from her. Others who cared about her became more and more worried as the hours turned into night. Calls to her phone and texts would go ignored, which was strange for Catalina because she always had a phone with her and would answer it when she needed to. Her friends, who were scared and confused, called her family at that moment, but they hadn't heard anything since she left home either. They kept moving and praying quietly as the night went on. And when morning came, there was still no sign of Catalina and no word to reassure them about her whereabouts. As we all know, they chose to go to the police office around noon. Soon after, Lazaro and Nestor joined the family. Their presence showed how much Catalina meant to those around her, both in terms of love and care. They didn't trust the situation, so it's not a surprise that they all asked for help right away. The bad news is that Catalina's disappearance came at the same time as some other scary reports. People in another city area called the police to say they saw a strange face in the shadows. By sunrise, they saw an unknown car on the side of the road with its windows smoked out. People couldn't get a good look inside the car. Not that they wanted to, because it was broken and smelled like ash. And as you may or may not have guessed, it had a terrible surprise inside. Now, before we go any further, who is Catalina Gutierrez? How did this horrible story begin? The lovely Eleonora Valenvert and Marcela Gutierrez had a daughter named Catalina Gutierrez in February 2003. Before she was born, her family of 4, including her older sister Lucia, chose to move to the outskirts of Córdoba City and make a home that was warm and caring. Because her father, Marcelo, was a famous architect, the family was always creative and ambitious. Her mother, Eleonora, raised their 2 girls and made sure they all had a very happy and balanced life. Catalina and Lucia were close like sisters and could never be separated. Growing up, they were known to be both brothers and best friends. Only their father truly valued how close they were. He was proud to say that his girls had a divine connection and would rarely fight. Catalina became close to her father as they grew up, and she helped him follow his dreams. Mostly, this meant singing and traveling. When Catalina was young, her father taught her to play the guitar, a hobby she enjoyed throughout her teenage years. Inspired by her father's passion for his work, she dreamed of following in his footsteps. After graduating high school, she enrolled at the University of Córdoba to study design and pursued her dream with determination. Catalina wasn't just academically talented, she was also a delight to be around. Friends described her as very attractive thanks to her friendly, bubbly personality and strong self-confidence. Her beauty and charm were well known far beyond her close circle of friends and family. This was evident in her large following on social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Catalina shared snapshots of her life, her stylish outfits, fun adventures around Córdoba, trips with family and friends, special moments with her sister Lucia, and of course, her beloved dog. With over 100,000 fans on Instagram and 35,000 followers on TikTok, it was clear many people admired her content. Her online popularity even attracted sponsorships from local brands. This gave her sense of business ownership and helped pay for her schooling. She would meet a lot of new people and have a lot of new chances, including love when she went to college. Around this time, she met a man named Lázaro Oliveira. Both Catalina and Lázaro were deeply religious Christians and were studying design. They quickly found things they had in common. It was normal for their bond to grow, and soon it turned into a loving relationship. It wasn't long before they made it public, and everyone could see how much they loved each other. It was clear that they loved each other, and they were very open about their relationship. They posted a lot of pictures of their life together on social media, which is something that many female leaders think is bad for their image. They talk to each other all the time. In fact, they talk so much that we know her last message was sent to him on the night she disappeared. But even though her voice message was short and sweet, it was going to give him the creeps for hours to come. "I'm on my way, my love," was all she said. "See you soon." Lázaro was her partner and the last person to hear from her, so he was bound to be a key person of interest. His alibi, on the other hand, was very strong because he was with friends in the middle of a shopping center that was full of security cameras. So police quickly decided that he wasn't guilty. It's important to note that the cops didn't want to get involved right away because Catalina was an adult and hadn't been missing for more than 24 hours. So as you might expect, especially in a place with a lot of crime, her case was not taken care of right away. But her family didn't like this because they were sure she would never leave them in the dark like that. So they decided to look into it themselves by following Catalina's steps again on the night of July 16th. Her family put together the last few minutes before she disappeared. These people now knew that she had driven off in her mom's silver Renault Clio to meet her close friend, Nestaso, too, before going to the Patio Almost shopping center. It made sense that this would be a good place to begin. But when her mom called Nesta to see how things were going, he told her that Catalina never showed up and didn't pick him up. He glanced out his window but saw nothing unusual on his quiet residential street. Realizing something was amiss, he decided to call Lazaro first thing in the morning. By then, Lazaro was deeply concerned about his girlfriend, so he and a friend began searching for Catalina. Sadly, despite their efforts, she remained missing. By midday, they found themselves at the police station with her family. Catalina's sister, Lucia, mentioned that they always shared their locations via phone to stay safe. When she checked Catalina's iPhone, it showed a ping at 3900 Pedro East Char Street, a neighborhood in southern Córdoba. This was alarming because it matched reports from locals who had contacted the police about suspicious people lingering in the area the previous night and an unfamiliar car arriving overnight. Given these strange connections, the police decided to investigate the vehicle. What they uncovered would shatter the Gutierrez family's world forever. A heartbreaking discovery. When the police got to the scene, they saw the silver Renault Clio parked next to the road. In the back seat of the car, they found the partly burned remains of a young woman, which was very sad. As you might guess, Catalina was quickly found to be the victim. It looked like the fire was started quickly and not very well since most of her body was still there. After that, the area was closed off so that police could look into it, and Catalina's body was sent in for an autopsy. And the results of the autopsy would show a horrible truth. The fire wasn't what killed her. It was just an attempt to get rid of all the proof. The real cause of her death was asphyxiation, and the many injuries on her body showed that she had been beaten up. When Catalina's body was found, the report of a missing person turned into an investigation into her death. That being said, two important questions came up. Who killed her and why? After this, the police quickly named a number of important suspects, including her boyfriend, Lazaro, as we all know. But as we all know, surveillance cams and eyewitnesses would quickly rule him out. With that in mind, the police turned their attention to Nestor, who was the next person who should have seen her. Detectives chose to look into it more when they found out that he didn't have a solid alibi. We agreed that she would pick him up so that they could go to the mall together. We all know that he says she never made it to his property, though, which is to say the least interesting because that's not what her cell phone data showed. There were records on her phone that showed she had been outside or near his land for 38 minutes. When they looked even more closely, they saw that Nestor had removed a number of text messages. This does not seem like the actions of a man who is not guilty. Do you agree? Since he is now the center of attention, I think it's time to introduce you to Nestor Sautu. A person named Nestor Sautu was friendly with Catalina. Nestor moved to a big city to follow his dream of studying design. He was born in the beautiful Barilac region of Argentina, which is close to the border with Chile. Of course, this drive is what brought him into Catalina's life in the end. They knew each other through mutual friends, and over time, they became close friends. They got along great, but Catalina was already deeply involved with someone else. Not only that, but she also never showed any personal interest in Nestor. Catalina thought that their relationship was only friendly. A lot of the time, Nestor would come over to the Guerra's house and hang out with her boyfriend and her dog. His limits should have been very clear, both to him and to other people. He cooked with Catalina, learned with her, and played with the family dog. By all accounts, he seemed like a good friend who would be there for her. Catalina's mother remembered nothing strange about him. On the inside, though, Nestor had strong feelings that went far beyond friendship. He was actually crazy in love with Catalina, so much so that his admiration was almost like a dream. Every chance he got, he made an effort to spend time with her. He also kept in touch with her often and was always a part of her online life, commenting on many of her posts. It was obvious that Nestor's suppressed emotions were dangerously close to boiling over, which was unsettling, especially since he pretended to respect Catalina's relationship with Lazaro. But once the police started digging into Nestor's past, troubling stories began to surface. One of Catalina's former classmates recounted a terrifying incident at camp where Nestor tried to force himself on her after a night out. She had to push him away and yell at him because he wouldn't take no for an answer. Another woman who once dated him came forward too, describing Nestor as protective but extremely controlling during their relationship. These revelations painted a frightening portrait of a man prone to violent and dangerous behavior when things didn't go his way. His hostility toward a friend in a normal situation raised serious questions about what he might do when obsessed with someone he could never have. Despite all this, Catalina never expressed fear about Nestor. She considered him one of her closest friends and trusted him enough to welcome him into her life. Taken together with the cell phone data, this new information was enough to secure a search warrant and lead to Nestor's arrest. He was questioned about Catalina's death while they searched his land the other way. Also, I think it was pretty clear during that conversation that he wasn't naturally good at lying. They would ask him questions and he would change his story from "I never saw her that night" to "Well, okay, maybe I saw her, but only for a couple of minutes." It was clear that he wasn't able to handle the stress. And as more questions were asked, he looked even more out of sorts. It was at that moment that he finally broke down. He started crying and said she was the love of my life. The next thing that happened was a horrible statement that made Catalina's family hate this man who they used to think was a good friend. Detectives made a rough timeline of what happened that night while Nestor was in custody and being questioned. There was a lot of proof against him. Investigators found that Catalina had left the family home around 9 p.m. and then texted Nestor to let him know she was on her way. Nestor replied twice and then deleted the whole chat. As we now know, this was an early attempt to hide his tracks. When she got to his house, Nestor was already there to greet her. Unfortunately, the full details of what happened are still not clear. However, police think that he told her how he really felt about her while the car was still parked outside of his house. The situation got worse when Catalina turned him down. He lost it and fighting broke out. One of her best friends then attacked her very badly while she was still sitting in her mother's car. Based on the information we have, Nestor probably strangled her and then hit her several times, hurting her all over. Even though Nestor had been hurt, there were no defensive cuts on him. This meant that Catalina might not have been able to fight back. Sad to say, he put Catalina's body in the back seat of the car after killing her and then drove off. Around 10:20 p.m., a traffic camera caught Eleonora's Silva Renault Clio driving along Valero Avenue, which is a key road that connects Nestor's house to the spot where the car and her body would later be found. He then took the car to 3900 Pedro Achar Street, parked it, and tried to set it on fire to get rid of all the proof. There was one important mistake he made, though. He forgot to take Catalina's phone out of the car. The phone, which would be used to figure out where she was later. On the other hand, the scene was so sloppy that her body probably wouldn't have been found for long. Nestor then called Catalina's mother just a few minutes after setting her daughter on fire to make it look like he wasn't guilty. He told her mother 8 times that he hadn't seen Catalina and pretended to look out the window for her each time. He would even help look for her with her boyfriend, Lazaro, the next morning. After that, he would go to the police station with his family. When Catalina's body was found, Nestor comforted her family, hugged Eleonora, and even shared their sadness even though he knew he was the one who killed her. We now know that this horrible planned behavior was a cold attempt to avoid being suspected and keep up the appearance that he was a caring friend. Now that we look back, many of Nestor's acts did seem odd. At the time though, his dishonesty was good enough to keep him from being caught right away. And we all know that the full scope of his betrayal wouldn't become clear until the investigation went further. Later, cops found her ring hidden in his bedroom, which was more proof. It was a horrible trophy for him to keep after killing his best friend. When all of this proof and Nestor's first confession were added together, he was arrested and charged with aggravated murder. And even though his first confession was used as proof, he refused to give any more recorded statements or confessions once the legal process started and he hired a lawyer. So even though he hasn't been put on trial yet, I think it's pretty clear how this will end. His initial statement is more than enough to get him thrown out. At the time this tape was made, Nestor was still in preventative detention just outside of Córdoba. It's no surprise that many other prisoners often make death threats against him. People think that he is very likely to be hurt by violence, coercion, and other things in jail because he is young and skinny. Because of this, he is usually kept away from the other prisoners. After police looked into the case more, they added a charge of gender violence to go along with the charge of severe murder by treachery. Right now, Nestor could get a life sentence, which is obviously bad news for him and all the time he has left to live. Digital forensics are likely to reveal more about his friendship with Catalina, which could, as you might expect, have a big effect on the jury's decision. Figuring out how their relationship works is very important in this case because it could help explain Nestor's motivations and even show if the attack was planned. But the prosecutor's office says this case is pretty much over unless new and surprising information comes to light. At this point, there are no signs that this hearing will be held up. But Nestor's mental health is also something that needs to be thought about. This is interesting because he has refused to help his defense team with any medical or psychological tests so far. In an effort to defend him, his mother said that he was under a lot of stress before the crime. Even so, to be honest, it's still really hard to feel sorry for him. Even though he hasn't said anything about it, Nestor is said to have deeply regretted what he did through his lawyer. He has also said sorry to Catalina's family, but he hasn't said anything official about her death yet. As you might guess, this case caused a lot of shock in Argentina. Catalina and Nestor were both young, smart, and full of promise. The fact that their lives were wasted shocked the whole country. This story is a sobering reminder of how bad it is to let your feelings and hidden obsessions get out of hand. For now, this case has not been solved, so Catalina's family has not yet found the peace of mind they need, and they are still sad about their daughter's death. Her body is still being held by cops because it could be used as proof in Nestor's trial. It makes sense that this is a terrible situation for Catalina's family who want to cremate her as soon as possible. The father of Catalina, who is very sad, has since told press about his pain. He said, "I don't know why I'm in pain. I only want justice and for him to spend the rest of his life in jail because he doesn't deserve to live in this world." Catalina's family, friends, and classmates are all left to grieve without any conclusion while the case goes on. To honor her memory, Catalina's classmates placed a sign on an empty chair at the start of the new school term that read, "Catalina should be here." Fans touched by her story also paid tribute online, calling her a poor angel. Everyone hopes for justice during Nestor's hearing, remembering how deeply Catalina impacted her community. But for her family, the loss is incredibly emotional and immeasurable. They recall Catalina as a joyful, kind-hearted, and loving person, an exceptional student with a bright future ahead. She embodied happiness, kindness, and music all at once, and her absence has left a profound emptiness in their daily lives. As they endure this painful journey, we can only hope that justice will eventually prevail. It's clear her tragic death has resonated with many across the country. My heart truly goes out to her family and friends. The case of Michelle Lung. Snapper Point is an Australian conservation area situated near Fraser Park Beach, close to Catherine Hill Bay, New South Wales. The area surrounding Cape Snapper Point draws adventurous tourists who climb it in search of remarkable photographs as it comprises entirely of steep, irregular volcanic rocks. On April 24, 2016 at 10:30 a.m., a group of hikers walking at the foot of the promontory noticed a large object floating on the surface of the water. They reported the discovery to law enforcement, and the police arrived at the scene and removed an unidentified package. After examining the findings on shore, they discovered the body of an unknown woman with multiple injuries, suggesting that the victim had been subjected to a brutal assault. She was not identified, but news reports described her as an Asian female between 20 and 30 years old of average height. 5 years earlier, a major airport in the northern Sichuan province of the People's Republic of China saw off 20-year-old Lung during a torrential downpour. The girl tearfully said goodbye to her beloved mother after the death of her father in February 2008. Her mother became the closest person to her. Lung flew from her native China to the distant country of Australia, where she had dreamed of studying since her childhood. 11 hours later, the plane landed in Sydney. It was the first time Lung had made such a long journey alone, but she was determined to achieve her dream, so she easily overcame any difficulties. She was met at the airport by her own aunt and her son, who was only 2 years younger than Lung. The oldest and most populous state in Australia is New South Wales, where 1 in 3 Australians live. It was here that Lung's early years was spent after moving here. Since coming to Australia, Lung has lived happily with her 48-year-old aunt, her young husband, Derek Barrett, and her cousin in their camping house. The girl had a private room where she spent almost all of her free time. Lung loved to read and draw, so she would spend hours in her room pursuing her favorite hobbies. For the convenience of living in another country, Lung changed her name to Michelle. Michelle Lung enrolled at the University of Technology in Sydney, where she successfully studied economics and hospitality management. Michelle was very intelligent and motivated. She was not afraid of anything new and easily made new acquaintances. Like many girls of her age, she often posted photos on social networks where she drank cocktails with friends, as well as pictures of her extreme adventures to dangerous natural places. Michelle was an adventurous person who could easily travel to Hobart for a vacation and regularly took day trips around New South Wales. In recent weeks, she posted videos from West Head Lookout near Sydney Harbour, photos from Resolute Beach north of the city, from Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park, and from Jervis Bay on the south coast. On June 13, 2013, she visited Snapper Point, where she fearlessly photographed herself on the edge of a cliff and posted the striking photo to her Instagram account. Michelle excelled in her studies, made new Instagram account. Michelle excelled in her studies, made new friends, and found a part-time job. Desiring to organize her personal life, Michelle communicated regularly with men on dating sites and went on trial dates. The woman led an active and busy life, attending classes during the day and then rushing to work on her weekends. She made sure to meet friends and visit unusual places. On April 21, 2016, Michelle met up with a friend at the mall. They had lunch together, did some shopping, and then Michelle boarded a train at the train station. She got off at Central Station around 4:30 in the afternoon and was never seen again. 2 days later, Derek went to the train station to meet his wife who had returned from a business trip. Aunt Michelle asked Derek about his niece and he said he had not seen her in 2 days. Derek Barrett had been unemployed for a long time, so he often stayed up late at the computer and woke up only in the afternoon. So it was obvious that he might not have seen Michelle, but the situation was such that nobody had seen Michelle since April 22nd and her phone was switched off. Having called all of Michelle's acquaintances and friends, the aunt became even more worried. She inspected the girl's room, but it was in perfect order as usual. After going through the girl's laptop, the family concluded that Michelle had not returned from her date and perhaps something had happened to her. Her absence was quite unusual as she was in regular contact with friends and family members living in China and Australia. The next day, Michelle's aunt and her husband, Derek, went to the police station and filed a missing persons report. They also reported Michelle Liang's disappearance to the Chinese embassy on April 24, 2016. The body of an unidentified woman wrapped in a plastic bag was discovered by a group of tourists at Snapper Point. While Michelle's relatives in China and Australia were searching for her, local news channels reported the finding of the woman's body. A compiled sketch of the victim made it clear that it was Michelle. It took the police 3 days to identify her after they made a sketch of her. From that point on, Michelle Lung was officially listed as a missing person and an investigation was launched. After interviewing Michelle's close relatives who were living with her, the initial theory was that she had been attacked by an unknown person with whom she had planned to meet that day. CCTV footage tracked the girl's movements on the day she went missing, but the surveillance cameras and footage from a short train journey showed that Michelle was alone. According to her friends, She had no plans to meet anyone that day and was in a rush to get home. Reviewing social networks and correspondence of the girl did not confirm the presence of a young man with whom she could have met. The version about a secret stranger who could have committed the crime was not confirmed. The results of the forensic examination confirmed that Michelle's body had sustained multiple injuries, and she had most likely tried to fight off her attacker, resulting in multiple stab wounds. Police Chief Inspector Gary Jubilant said the interpretation of the situation is that Michelle was brutally assaulted before her death, but she was spotted on her way home and did not go out anywhere else. So the perpetrator must have attacked her in that area. The inspector also noted that most likely, the perpetrator had deliberately chosen a very secluded area of such a beautiful place as the body was found in an area frequented by tourists and fishermen. But the place was somewhat isolated. Forensic analysis indicated that Michelle Lang's body had been in the water for no more than 48 hours and likely much less, suggesting the body had been dumped quite recently. The chief inspector of police stated that although the location where the body was found was distant from the national park entrance, there was a parking lot near the tourist attraction, implying the body may have been transported there by car. Homicide detectives studied CCTV and traffic camera footage to determine Michelle Lang's last known movements. They continued to contact her family members, friends, and co-workers to gather additional information. In addition to the search efforts, interviews were conducted with relatives and acquaintances in the hope of reconstructing a detailed picture of the event and establishing a full understanding of the relationships within the family where Michelle lived. Police Inspector Gary Jubilant stated with certainty that based on the gathered information, Michelle was a very person who always kept in touch with her family and informed them of her whereabouts. Therefore, there were serious concerns when she suddenly disappeared. However, for 2 days, her family either did not notice she was missing or chose to ignore it. Police called Derek Barrett in for questioning as the last person to see Michelle alive. Investigators were skeptical of his accounts of nightlife and long daytime naps, so he was re-interviewed. The investigators began asking questions about his relationship with Michelle and asked him to remember the last time he had seen her. Unable to withstand the pressure of the interrogation, Derek refused to answer the question and demanded a lawyer. Such strange and uncertain behavior led to a number of doubts, and Derek was arrested as a suspect. However, the arrest had grounds, as on the eve of the interrogation, investigators checked his cell phone signal and found that he was in the same area where Michelle's body was found on April 24th. Additionally, when police obtained surveillance footage from a parking lot, they captured a car matching the description of Derek Barrett's vehicle in the early morning hours of April 24th, leaving no doubt that he was there. Derek denied and claimed to the last that it was just a coincidence and the car was not his, but the footage was clear enough to prove his presence in the parking lot. Police have charged a 27-year-old man in the death of 25-year-old Michelle Lang. Her naked body with multiple stab wounds was found in a blowhole on the Central Coast, New South Wales. The news of the arrest and charge against Derek has left Michelle's entire family in shock. Police spoke to Michelle's mother, who was devastated by the news of her daughter's death. She rushed to Sydney to see the site of her only daughter's dream and death, but the woman was still unable to comprehend her daughter's passing. Derek Barrett, age 27, who was married to Michelle Lang's aunt, was charged with the 25-year-old student's murder. This occurred after the police released CCTV footage that captured her last shopping trip in the central business district of Sydney on April 21st, as well as her journey back home. The footage shows her shopping at a mall on Pitt Street before boarding a train at St. James Station to travel to Erskine Park, located in the southwest of Sydney. The police believe that Michelle returned to her family home in Erskine Park in the afternoon, where she lived with her uncle, aunt, and cousin, and was presumably murdered there. The autopsy revealed that Michelle tried to fight off her attacker and was stabbed several times in defense, stabbing her more than 30 times in total. CCTV footage is believed to have captured a vehicle entering Lake Monmora National Park at around 7 a.m. on April 24th, and police claim Michelle Lang's body was inside the vehicle, despite Derek Barrett being detained and charged. The investigation continued, and gradually other details of Michelle Lang's final moments surfaced. Based on these, further charges were laid, including 5 counts of indecent assault, 2 counts of installing a hidden camera, and murder. The investigation revealed that the suspect had an abnormal sexual interest in his wife's young niece. When Derek Barrett's cell phone was seized and handed over to experts for analysis and recovery of previously deleted data, the files found on the phone left no doubt that he was not only involved in Michelle's death but also had an unhealthy interest in her. It turned out that Derek had installed a hidden camera in the shared bathroom, hidden behind toiletry items, and regularly reviewed the recordings. The phone also contained images taken just before Michelle's death. Following these images, it became clear that Michelle had returned home on April 21st around 5 p.m. And around midnight, she sent her last text message from her phone, after which she could not be contacted. Late at night, Derek Barrett began to execute his malicious plan. He entered Michelle's room again while she was asleep to carry out his customary pattern of assault and gratification. But the girl woke up and Derek attacked her. He bound her and covered her mouth with duct tape to keep her silent. The deviant kept her tied to the bed for 2 days and intermittently abused her, as evident from the photographs on his phone. Investigators found Michelle bound, naked, and with a look of horror on her face lying on the bed. However, in these photos, Michelle did not yet have the injuries that led to her death. Derek's last picture of her was taken around 8 a.m. on April 23rd, and at that time, Michelle was still alive. During the day of April 23rd, Derek's steps and Derek came home twice and did not hear any sounds from Michelle. Derek was taking a shower at the time. Surveillance cameras showed that Derek left the apartment 4 times to take out the trash. Presumably by this time, Michelle was already dead. Derek had showered and washed off any traces of blood and then thoroughly cleaned the house, hiding evidence of the crime and Michelle's disappearance. On April 24th at 7 a.m., Derek drove to Snapper Point. On the way, he stopped at a gas station where he bought drinks and filled his car with gasoline. That's where he was caught on CCTV cameras. Upon arriving at Snapper Point, he disposed of Michelle's body and took some pictures around 9 a.m. Afterwards, Derek visited his parents, who noticed nothing unusual in his behavior, and then returned home to await his wife's return with absolute equanimity. He repeatedly claimed that he had not seen Michelle and that the girl had not returned home, and cynically accompanied his wife to the police station to file a missing persons report. On June 29, 2016, the first court hearing was held. Barrett's lawyer, Bill Whitby, told the local court that Barrett was pleading not guilty and that he was as shocked and upset by Michelle's death as the rest of the family. Michelle Lang's friends and family were present in the packed courtroom, but Derek Barrett did not need to attend in person. He appeared later via video link. The fact is that the day before, the defendant reported that he did not remember much in the hours before he killed Michelle Lang because he had taken illegal drugs. He also told the court that he had only vague memories of the 2-hour trip to Snapper Point, where he threw Michelle Lang's body off the cliff. Before attending the court hearing, Derek Barrett was examined by a psychologist. However, forensic psychologist Dr. Richard first disputed the defendant's claims of memory loss. He testified and found Derek Barrett mentally fit to be punished to the full extent of his sentence. Dr. first testified that the drugs the suspect was taking did not cause memory loss and that all of his actions, from the murder to the disposal of the body, were clear and purposeful. Respected forensic psychiatrist, Dr. Richard First, also stated that Derek Barrett's intelligence, concentration, and memory were within the normal range. He did not believe Barrett's claims of memory loss and said the number of stab wounds indicated sadistic tendencies rather than memory lapses or acting on emotions. The psychologist also rejected Derek Barrett's claim that he did not feel sexually attracted to the victim. Dr. Richard First also told the court that the accused feigned amnesia to reduce his responsibility for the crime after he claimed he could not remember the period when he apprehended and killed Michelle Lang. Speaking at the trial, Derek Barrett attempted to justify his crime by claiming he was addicted to illegal drugs. However, this assertion was refuted by Dr. Richard First, who pointed out that Derek's claim was self-contradictory, as it was evident that the suspect had gained weight during that time period. Judge Wilson stated that in his 30-year career as a criminal defense attorney, he had never encountered an obese substance-dependent individual. Regrettably, there was nothing genuine about Derek Barrett's behavior in the courtroom. In Sydney, Derek Barrett's demeanor in court gave the impression of a psychopath. His crime was not the result of a drunken night, poor life choices, or childhood abuse. In August, at a retrial hearing, Derek Barrett pleaded guilty to murdering and kidnapping Michelle Lang, as well as twice sneaking into her room while she slept and making videos. He also admitted taking 19 explicit photos of Michelle Lang shortly before her death. Barrett said he could not remember the 48 period during which he killed the girl, including cleaning up the crime scene and dumping her body because he was under the influence of illegal substances. He said his only memories were of an argument, blood in the bathroom, and the terrified face of his niece screaming at him. However, Judge Wilson said she did not believe Derek Barrett was telling the truth about his memory loss, nor did she believe he was truly sorry for what he had done. The Lung family consoled each other, while Derek Barrett wiped away tears, telling them, "I deserve to live. This should never have happened." Passing sentence, Judge Helen Wilson condemned Derek Barrett's actions as depraved and sadistic, committed by a person in a position of trust. The judge detailed Barrett's disturbing fantasies and actions in court, making it clear that he had failed to fool anyone. Although the events were deeply etched in his mind, Barrett claimed they were merely vague memories. During the court sessions, Barrett showed no emotion and repeatedly spoke the victim's name. Chief Inspector Gary Jubilant of the NSW Police Homicide Unit stated that the crime was horrific and senseless. And while justice was served, there was no joy in such a case. Judge Wilson sentenced 28-year-old Barrett to 34 years and 6 months in prison with a maximum term of 46 years. He will be eligible for parole in February 1950. Barrett displayed no emotional reaction when sentenced. Michelle's mother, Mrs. Zhang, expressed gratitude to the Australian and Chinese communities for their support during her time of immense grief. She also thanked the NSWOC police, including Detective Inspector Jubilant, for their investigation into her daughter's death. A fund has been established to cover the costs of Miss Lang's funeral and to provide support for her mother when she returns to China. However, Michelle Lang's tragic story did not end there. 4 years after the crime, an unexpected event occurred. A woman visiting her elderly dementia-affected mother found an unknown USB device in the mother's hands. Upon examination, the device contained disturbing videos and photos of Michelle Lang's abuse shortly before her murder. The police were able to match the photos to those that Derek Barrett had deleted from his phone in an attempt to conceal his crimes. In 2020, Barrett was charged with additional sex offenses based on this new evidence. Prosecutor Huhu Baker told the court that the elderly woman had no connection to Barrett, and there was no explanation for how the USB drive ended up in her possession. The horrifying and depraved secret discovered by chance led to Barrett receiving additional years of punishment to his already lengthy sentence. Friends and acquaintances commemorated Michelle Leung on Chinese and Australian social media. This tragic story underscores the need to address the underlying factors that can contribute to such crimes, such as idleness, lack of purpose, and indifference. Cherishing life and being mindful of each day is crucial, as we can never predict which day will be our last. Thank you so much for watching and exploring these cold cases with me. If you found the video interesting, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to NA Cold Cases for more deep dives into the unsolved and unexplained.